Hello and welcome to Protect Ukraine Now YouTube channel. In August of this year, Protect Ukraine Now, together with UCare, created a petition to push the Biden administration to save $6 billion in presidential drawdown authority for Ukraine and expedite the military assistance. The pace of the deliveries was very slow, and we had insider information that the PDA authority will be permitted to expire. Thanks to your support, we were able to create enough public awareness that was no longer possible to ignore. With your support, we have collected, mailed, and faxed over 5,000 letters. As a result, the administration notified Congress of the intent to ship all the remaining military assistance to Ukraine. Everything that has been accumulated since 2022. This campaign was a glorious success, and the remaining 2024 PDA authority was salvaged.
In September, we heard from Department of Defense that they cannot ship to Ukraine more weapons because they don't have enough weapons to spare. In late September, nevertheless, they boosted military assistance deliveries, and the pace of delivery was high until early November, when it dropped once again. Administration has changed their mind, and now it's telling us that they have nothing to ship to Ukraine because of the shelves don't have enough stockpile. How many times we heard that since 2022? Multiple times. In the end of this video, we will show you some of the items that they may ship to Ukraine during the next month.
Moving on September 26, President Biden made the following promise to Ukraine and all Americans. Quote, I have directed the Department of Defense to allocate all of its remaining security assistance funding that has been appropriated for Ukraine by the end of my term in office.
This was a very important announcement, signifying a drastic change in trends and Biden's approach to assistance for Ukraine against Russian aggressor. Any war is a numbers game, and the effectiveness of any military assistance can be simplified into three categories. Quantity of the weapons provided, quality of those weapons. That includes any political driven restrictions. Obviously, when Ukraine is not permitted to hit some locations on the map, that functionality or quality of the weapon at hand is reduced. And then we have the pace of the delivery. When weapons are sent as one droplet of aid every few weeks, Ukraine cannot build momentum and has much harder time planning ahead.
The announcement by President Biden indicated a change in both quantity and pace of delivery. And frankly, here at Protect Ukraine Now, we were excited about the news. Biden promised to deliver $7 billion worth of weapons in the last quarter of 2024. Compare this to $3.6 billion in weapons Ukraine has received in the first 3 quarters of the year. That's roughly a 5 times increase we're talking about here, and we hope everyone listening to this video would agree that this is a major improvement. And that's before we even talk about the fact that actual PDA authority balance in mid-November was $9 billion, not 7. As we explained in our previous video, the Pentagon is not taking into account the latest Inspector General discovery of another $2 billion in accounting errors.
As of today, December 7th, Biden administration has $8 billion in presidential drawdown authority at hand. The situation is dynamic, and by the time you're watching this video, the number can be changed again, which is good. The pace of delivery is insufficient, and the overall amount is incorrect. That is bad. This is a motivation to record this video.
Going back to the Biden announcement, there's no evidence that expected increase in deliveries is taking place. The pace of military shipments to Ukraine remained largely unchanged. According to the Pentagon, in October, Ukraine received $825 million, and in November, $700 million in weapons. In order for Biden and the Department of Defense to fulfill on their commitment, they must instead deliver $2 billion worth of weapons every month to the end of Biden's term.
We estimate that at the current pace, Ukraine may receive at best between 1 to 1.5 billion of additional military aid between now and when Biden leaves the White House, on January 20th, 2025. Needless to say, we are very concerned by the current situation, and we believe every Ukraine supporter needs to know that the White House and Department of Defense are behind on their commitments. We're not the only ones who have these questions to the administration. Let us show you questions and answers some journalists have asked to the Department of Defense press secretaries about the feasibility of delivering the remaining PDA authority before January 20th. Please pay attention to how every time the Deputy Pentagon Press Secretary stays away from straight answer, while signaling that the weapons delivery is on track.
This video is a compilation of all instances when PDA delivery-related questions were asked during Pentagon press conferences between September 26, when Biden made his commitment, and today.
Okay, and then on Ukraine, the president has committed to getting the rest of the Ukraine aid out before the rest of his term. What does that mean in practical terms for y'all? Is there existing stockpile that could be sent now? What options are you looking at?
So in terms of existing stockpiles, I mean, what you're seeing us continue to do is send out those presidential drawdown packages. That will continue. We still have, approximately $2 billion left in USAI as well that we can commit.
So every time you hear about a USAI package announcement, that's an intent to use some of the previously Congress allocated funds. Afterwards, there will be a contract tender, a bid submission, awarding of the contract, manufacturing, payments, and only at the very end, the delivery of that munition to Ukraine. This is a lengthy process, and it will be years before Ukraine can use those weapons. Unfortunately, USAI announcements are done in the same manner as PDA, leaving listeners with an impression this is going to be a near-term transfer. Again, it will be years before weapons announced under the USAI program are in Ukraine.
So, you're going to continue to see packages roll out in the coming weeks before the end of this administration. That is consistent with how we've been doing this in the past. It's something that, we've done on a pretty regular, almost weekly basis.
Now, this is incorrect. There are no almost weekly basis. We have seen a maximum of 2 packages a month.
But I'd remind you, it's not just the United States that's supporting Ukraine and that will continue to support Ukraine. Part of the UDCG, you have over 50 countries. And on top of that, Ukraine has bicameral and bipartisan support in Congress. So there is an administration change that's going to happen in January, but support for Ukraine remains strong. Jen.
So just to follow up on that, Sabrina, I had heard the number $9 billion in aid that would be rushed over there in the next coming months. And does that mean, but there was some concern that those weapons wouldn't arrive in time before January 20th. And so is it still possible for that to be reversed or stopped? How does this work? Can you explain?
So in terms of, I apologies, I'm not exactly sure where you're getting the $9 billion dollar amount from.
We do know where this number comes from. The 9 billion are from roughly 4 billion in this year's PDA allowance, 3 billion from recaptured funds from the previous year. The term recaptured refers to the correction issued due to accounting errors identified by the Inspector General. Finally, there are 2 billion in recently discovered accounting errors from this summer, not to be confused with the 2 billion USAI balance. So 4 plus 3 plus 2 is roughly 9 billion of the remaining PDA authority.
But I'm happy to walk you through some of the numbers that I have in front of me. We have approximately $4 billion left in the previously committed PDA that the president notified Congress that he would be spending down that authority or using that authority before the end of his term, and then we have that USAI commitments or approximately $2 billion in USAI funding that we will also commit to Ukraine. When it comes to presidential drawdown packages, some things can arrive within days and weeks. Some items in those packages take longer. It does matter on what's available on our stock or on our shelves. You're going to see us continue to draw that down, pretty frequently. Could there be things that go out beyond January 20th? I can't say for certain right now, but we're committed to drawing down those PDAs. The USAI contracts, those could go for longer.
There's no could in the case of USAI. Those packages most definitely will be delivered after January 20th, 2025. As we just talked about, USAI delivers will take years from now, and they are future contracts that are yet to be signed and executed. Sabrina knows that very well. What she is doing is shifting the attention away from the PDA deliveries that are now running late.
But again, those are commitments and contracts that this administration has signed, so we would expect those to be upheld.
And back in January, the Inspector General had found that $1 billion worth of aid, military aid, had not been accounted for.
A correction: the Inspector General had found 1.9 billion in accounting errors, not one. And this was in June, not January. Otherwise, this is an excellent question by this reporter. We are very glad there are other people who pay attention to Inspector General reports. Again, these are roughly 2 billion in PDA that must be added back to the remainder of the authority. We account for this number when we estimate 9 billion in the remaining PDA authority.
Are you concerned that rushing this next tranche, there may not be accountability, and that some of this this drawdown could, disappear?
We're not. We are very confident in the processes and procedures and measures that we've put into place when it comes to getting aid to Ukraine and taking accountability for all of that. There have been reevaluations over time. We certainly welcome the Inspector General's review of those materials, but we're confident in the transparency of that process, and we're also confident in the support that Ukraine has from this administration and from Congress that they will continue to get those, whether it's capability systems, that will continue to flow to the battlefield. Oren.
Two questions. First is a follow-up here. Do you have enough weapons and equipment in current stockpiles and what will be produced before January 20th to actually use the remaining $4 billion in PDA?
Well, the president made the commitment that would be drawn, that we would use that PDA authority and before the term ends. So, we're always constantly backfilling and restocking our shelves. It's something that we're confident in getting those commitments to Ukraine when that comes to that over $4 billion in authority.
But that doesn't answer the question. Do you actually have enough to use all of it? Are you saying you do?
We are going to use it, and the president has committed to that. And so I'm not going to get into an Excel spreadsheet of what we have on our shelves, but we're committed to providing Ukraine what it needs, and that includes that $4 billion in authority.
Okay, and a more general question is, we're all aware that the clock is ticking. Is there a sort of hurry-up offense in getting the Ukrainians the weaponry that they're asking for before sort of January 20th? Is there a change to the pacing or delivery, et cetera, to that?
What I would say, Charlie, is we've had to hurry up and deliver security assistance to Ukraine from the very beginning. I mean, since 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years ago, when Secretary Austin stood up the Ukraine Defense Contact Group.
With all due respect to the general, there was never a hurry in providing Ukraine with weapons it needs, and there's no evidence there is a hurry right now. The aid to Ukraine was always spread thin over time. As you can see, Pentagon Deputy Press Secretary General Ryder is unable to support his position with not even a single number.
That has been a priority, is to get assistance to the Ukrainians as quickly as possible. So in so much as, we're here in November of 2024. It is still the same as it was 2 years ago. And so we are going to continue to do everything we can to rush security assistance to Ukraine to help them defend themselves against Russian aggression. Thank you. Alex.
Can you refresh our memory of how much Ukraine assistance has been given through PDAs this year? And can you confirm the $7 billion still left in the account? What's up with that? Why isn't that surged forward?
So a few things here. So since the supplemental, we've drawn down nearly $3.7 billion in equipment from DoD stocks across 12 PDA drawdowns that were announced between late April through mid-October.
Another correction, the DoD actually has drawn down $4.6 billion in weapons. However, $1 billion was drawn down from the 2023 recaptured authority, and the $3.6 billion mentioned by General Ryder come from the latest supplemental passed in April of this year.
And as we've highlighted before, when we draw down equipment that's immediately available from our stocks, we ship it within days or weeks. Between the passage of the supplemental and the middle of last month, we've delivered to Ukraine 83% of the critical munitions that we've committed from stock, including 155 millimeter artillery rounds, Gimlers, Patriot, NASAMS missiles, and more. We've also delivered 67% of other critical air defense commitments, including Stingers and Hawk missiles. And we've delivered 60% of the fires capabilities we have committed, including small diameter bombs and 105 millimeter ammunition. If it's something that's not immediately available because it requires repairs, we repair it as quickly as possible and then ship it immediately after. And then just since the passage of the supplemental, we've delivered hundreds of thousands of artillery rounds, thousands of armored vehicles, thousands of munitions for HIMARS and anti-tank weapons, dozens of artillery systems, significant air defense capabilities, including a Patriot battery, hundreds of interceptors, and dozens of other systems. And together with our allies and partners, the deliveries of the strategic air defense system we committed to providing at the NATO summit are nearly completed. As far as funding goes, Alex, right now what I'm tracking is we have a total of $7.1 billion in PDA. That includes the $4.3 billion for fiscal year 24 plus the $2.8 billion that was recaptured.
Okay, so this is very important part of the brief. Here, Pentagon Deputy Press Secretary General Ryder confirms the availability of the $2.8 billion in recaptured authority. Again, a recaptured authority comes from accounting errors discovered by the Inspector General and is technically a carryover from 2023. What's important here is this is an official confirmation of the availability of this authority from November 12th. Which is very recent. We haven't heard this being confirmed during other briefs.
With a $2.21 billion remaining in USAI. And so, as was highlighted earlier in this year, we are going to continue to rush aid and use the funds that we have to ensure that Ukraine gets what it needs in order to deter and fight against Russian aggression. So, we just recently announced a PDA, and I'm confident you will continue to see those coming out at a steady clip. And to Charlie's question, we understand the urgency of the situation, not because of politics, but because of the situation on the battlefield, and we're going to continue to do what we can to make sure that Ukraine has the aid.
I will dare to say this military assistance is held back exactly due to politics, as the situation on the battlefield calls for significantly more weapons. This is true since the beginning of the full-scale invasion. Nothing has changed, and all the assurances that the Department of Defense understands the urgency of the situation and is in a rush to deliver weapons to Ukraine are not supported by actual delivery announcements and timetables.
That it needs.
It's a totally separate topic.
Sure.
Ukraine aid. The president has said he's committed to getting about $7.1 billion in PDA to Ukraine before his administration ends. How do you get $7.1 billion off the shelf of Pentagon stockpiles in such a short time?
It is a short time, but it's also just under 70 days. This department can do incredible work in that amount of time. The president made clear that he wants to spend down the authority that Congress has allocated and authorized before he leaves office. So we're going to work very hard to make sure that happens. You've seen us roll out very large packages.
Again, we see at most 2 PDA packages a month. These are definitely not weekly deliveries. As you can see on your screen, since Biden committed to deliver all the remaining PDA authority before the end of his term, the Pentagon announced 2 packages in October, 425 and 400 million. 2 packages in November, 425 and $275 million. And then 5th package was announced in December for the amount of 725 million. In order for Biden to fulfill his commitment, this is not enough for the packages to be large. They need to be 2 billion a month large, and this is definitely not the case.
From the beginning, and you've seen us roll out actually I'd say a range of packages on a pretty frequent basis, almost weekly. So I expect that for the next coming months of this administration, you're going to continue to see those packages draw down from what's available in our stockpiles. Again, we're committed to ensuring that Ukraine has what it needs to be successful on the battlefield. Secretary Austin recently had a call with Minister Umerov. They discussed the capabilities that Ukraine needs to continue to push the Russians back, to continue to be successful in their strategic battle plans, and that's something that this administration is committed to.
Hi, Sabrina. So the U.S. is expected to send another $275 million in security assistance to Ukraine, announcing that later today. And I was just wondering, the president is committed to spending $7.1 billion before his term ends. How do you get there in these small increments? What is the Pentagon thinking on this?
So, Tara, I don't have a package to announce today, but as you know, we roll out packages on a pretty regular basis. So when we have something to announce, whether it be a presidential drawdown package or a USAI package, you'll be hearing from us, of course. In terms of the $7.1 billion that we have left and that we are able to use for drawdown authority. You've heard it from here and you've heard it from the White House that we are committed to using that full authority that Congress has allotted to us. The only way we can do that also is to make sure that our shelves are fully backfilled and stocked. So as our shelves continue to get stocked with equipment and capabilities that are needed, we draw down from those and send those to Ukraine. The president has committed to ensuring that every dollar that Congress has allocated will be spent.
November 19 press conference, the wonderful reporters continue to question the pace on the delivery of $7 billion in weapons, and now Pentagon Deputy Press Secretary makes the drawdown contingent upon the Department of Defense ability to restock their shelves. Now, this could be a change of tone. In general, the Department of Defense restocking could take years. This is obviously not a transparent process. We cannot ask for status of current contracts or ask for current inventory reports. If this language will continue to appear in Pentagon briefs, that would be an indication that the administration is backing out of their commitment.
There's only, I guess, about 8 weeks left or something like that. So if you're still waiting for the stockpiles to be replenished before sending, how do you get there before January 20th?
Yep. So we're working on that every single day. This building, is working on ensuring that Ukraine has what it needs to be successful on the battlefield in the short and long term. We roll out packages frequently. I don't have one to announce today, but when we do, you're going to see that cadence continue throughout the year and through the end of the administration.
On December 2nd, a journalist asked for a reality check for delivering the remaining PDA authority before January 20th. In response, the Deputy Pentagon Press Secretary said that he does not want to speculate and get into hypotheticals. This was an off-camera press conference, but here is the screenshot of the transcript.
As we promised in our previous video, today we're going to discuss our proposed mitigation strategy. Protect Ukraine Now, in collaboration with UCARE, are starting a new campaign aimed at reaching out to the key stakeholders that are either directly responsible for weapons transfer to Ukraine or are able to contribute and influence this process.
The link to this campaign, just like links to all other resources mentioned in the video, can be found in the description section of this video, and it's also on your screen.
Let us go through the details of this campaign and what we're asking you to do. This is a very short web page, and every word there is really important. Please also take the time to read it on your own.
In step 1, we're asking you for your name and address. This information is used to automatically look up for your 2 senators and the representative. We're also going to include it in the From section of the letters we are composing on your behalf. Once you enter your full name and address, the application will automatically compose the letters and load the remaining steps.
In step 2, we are asking you to type a short personal statement describing why support for Ukraine is important to you. You may cite your personal experience related to the invasion of Ukraine or things you have learned from talking to others. This step is optional. However, adding a personal touch will greatly enhance the impact of your address, and we highly encourage you to write these few sentences.
In step 3, we're going to list all letters we have composed on your behalf. If you have chosen to write a personal statement in step 2, it will also be included in these letters. In addition to your 2 senator and the representative, the list includes the President of the United States Secretary of Defense, Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition and Sustainment, Chairman of the House of Appropriations Committee, Chairman of the House of Armed Services Committee, Chairman of the Senate Appropriations Committee, Chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee, Chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, Inspector General and ranking members of all the committees we just mentioned.
All of these recipients were carefully selected based on their role in the US government and are the most capable individuals to make a difference in expediting the military aid to Ukraine. Step 4 is when we ask you to provide your signature to be included with your letters.
Step 5 is optional too. However, if you would like to be informed of the future campaigns, please provide your email address. We promise to only email you when an urgent action is required. When you click the Submit Letters button, the program will automatically fax your letters to the individuals on the recipients list.
Yes, the fax technology is still alive in many places, though it was computerized for both sending and receiving. We believe this is a very effective way of communication in our particular case, because many government officials do not provide their direct emails, therefore limiting electronic means of communication. We also believe this channel of communication is rarely utilized by others, therefore our campaign will receive special attention.
At this point, you're almost done, but there are 2 more things we would like to ask you. Though your letter is already faxed over, we would like to ask you to print these letters, sign them at the bottom with an ink pen, and mail each one of them to the corresponding address listed in the header of the document.
We would like to assure you that this extra effort on your part will be noticed by the recipient. Not too many people would go through the effort of physically mailing a letter, and this is your chance to stand out. This is your chance to say you really care. If you would like to help us keep track of the physical mail that went out, please drop us an email to contact@protectukrainenow.org and let us know you have mailed the letters. Last time we ran a mail and fax campaign, we were able to send over 5,000 letters and about as many faxes. Please help us keep track of the progress this time too. Before we wrap up this video, there are a few anticipated questions that we would like to answer.
Why should we contact these individuals? Aren't they already doing everything they can?
Every time you reach out to our government officials, you reaffirm public support for Ukraine. You also make sure that any administration does their best to stand by commitments they have made. You also make sure the new administration is aware the Americans want them to ship all the remaining PDA authority. Isn't the Department of Defense running out of munitions? Don't they need to replenish our own stock before sending it to Ukraine?
The Department of Defense is low in specific munition categories. For example, 155 artillery shells. In other categories, we barely scratch the surface. We have a long list of what can be provided. For example, Patriot air defense systems. We haven't sent a single fighter jet to Ukraine. M113 armored personnel carriers. Bradley and Stryker infantry fighting vehicles, and more.
How can we help Ukraine and not compromise our own military readiness?
We have a long list of weapons that we don't need and that are being demilitarized as we speak. For example, in April 2022, the Department of Defense signed a contract to demilitarize 4 million DPICM cluster munition. It's 155 artillery shells mostly. If there's something left from those artillery shells due demilitarization, we can ship them to Ukraine. They're much needed there. We can ship military surplus to Ukraine, including excess defense articles. We can use a Dutch scheme to directly contract weapons in Ukraine for Ukraine. This will cost much less than a price in the US, and it will unload the burden from our own defense contractors, as they cannot keep up with the current pace.
The Department of Defense is low on critical weapons, and we don't have enough items needed by Ukraine.
Majority of critical weapons that are low on stock have substitutes. For example, we can provide mortars instead of artillery shells. We have received great feedback from Ukrainian military. That is what they need the most to stop Russian meat grinder assaults. The United States has hundreds of retired fighter jets, for example, F-16s. They can be made available for Ukraine. We have not shipped a single fighter jet to Ukraine so far. The United States has Patriot air defense batteries that were taken off duty, and we manufacture them a lot every year. The United States has phasing out M113's armored personnel carriers and Humvees. They are available in store and they are being sold as surplus. The United States has thousands of old Bradley infantry fighting vehicles available as excess defense articles. They can be shipped to Ukraine as well.
We thank everyone for watching this video and participating in the $9 billion PDA campaign. This is a crucial step to assuring Ukraine continues to receive critical munition it needs right now. Please share this video with your friends, family, and thank you for the participation. Thanks, everyone, and have a good day.
And stay tuned. We will follow up with the new video where we explain in more details about what weapons we might provide to Ukraine, what's the best and what's the most efficient ways to help Ukraine, and how not to break the bank and help Ukraine win this war. Thank you and stay tuned.
Take care.